I want to talk about the Apple Studio display that was released along with the Mac Studio and all the stuff that came out last week. I went out and got the Mac Studio last Friday. I've had the Mac Studio now for a week. And then on Saturday, I was fortunate enough to just go into my Best Buy, and lo and behold, they had the Studio display and on display. And one of them in stock. And so I was like, boom, I want that. I want it. And I think that's a big part of why we have to talk about what we have to talk about, because the Studio display is really not like other monitors that you can buy out there, not just in its specs, but in like its intent and what it is that you're really buying when you're buying the Studio display. So before we get started, I want to say thank you for being here. My name is Jason T. Lewis. If you like what you see here, if you want to have more conversations about creativity and the tech that we use to create it, then this is the place where you need to be. You need to hit that subscribe button. Come on back and see me again. I do videos a couple of times a week. We'll have boisterous discussions always about that kind of thing. If you want to support the channel, I've got memberships down there. The new membership stuff is coming very soon. Anything that you can help me out with and support the channel will be greatly appreciated, because it'll just help me, I appreciate it. Let's get back to the Mac display. Now, most of the discussion that I've seen about the Mac Studio display, Apple Studio display, has been about what it doesn't have, which to me is like a weird way to really have a conversation, but it's been about what it doesn't have. And we'll get into that as we go on, but I really want to get started talking about what it does have and why it matters and why it makes it different than other monitors that you might consider for your desktop needs. What is the Apple Studio display? It is a high-quality 5K IPS monitor with a single backlight. A lot of people are making a big deal about the fact that it doesn't have multiple backlight sections. It's not a TV. So it doesn't work exactly the same way. It doesn't have micro LED. It doesn't have ProMotion 120 hertz display. Honestly, I'm going to say this right at the top of this whole deal. This is the Apple display that I have been waiting for a long time. Back when the Thunderbolt display was available, I couldn't afford it. And so now that this is here, I'm really happy that it's here. So let's talk about a second the good stuff that this display offers. The build quality is absolutely incredible. Totally, aluminum, shiny, perforations all over the place, highly detailed design. It is a beautiful thing to put on your desk if you're into that sort of thing. It's also very functional, and it's very functional in kind of a Mac and Apple specific way. And I think when you're looking at this, you have to think about that as well. It has one Thunderbolt 4 port and 3 USB-C ports. I think it's 10 gigabits per second that each of those can output. The build quality of this thing is unlike any other monitor that I've ever used. Most monitors are plastic, at least in some way, shape, or form. Most monitors are plastic. It's very rare to find something that has the attention to detail, the solidity, the overall build quality and materials that the Apple Studio display has. The screen, now again, people complain about the screen, but I'm here to tell you, this is a slightly better version of the 5K display that was in the iMacs up to this point. And even though the 5K display has existed for a while, I think it's a misnomer to think that the 5K display hasn't been improved a little bit here and there over the time that since it was introduced. It's a 27-inch IPS 5K display. 5K versus 4K, what does that mean? It means that for scaling, this is double 1440p, whereas 4K is not quite. And that's always been a big deal for Apple. Something about the way Macs scale on 4K displays or 1440p displays just has never been quite right. So this screen is 600 nits of brightness. Everybody loves to talk about the nits. Right now I have it, it's at about 60%, more than enough brightness for me in this somewhat darkened studio space. I'll never use all 600 nits, but it's bright and it's crisp, and the colors are absolutely what I need them to be. You can also select different color spaces for different kinds of work. If you're working in video, if you're working in print, etc., etc., you can select different color spaces and use this monitor for those purposes. That's something you don't see very often in monitors at all, and this one does it very well. I mentioned the scaling. One problem that I've always had using an external monitor with an Apple product, whether it was with a MacBook or with a Mac Mini or anything like that, one problem I've always had is the scaling. Something about the way Apple computers scale on regular monitors has always been difficult for me because the text is never quite as crisp as I really need it to be. This is not like this is not a nitpicky thing. I work in front of a monitor all the time, every day. I'm a writer. If the text is not super crisp, then I get eye strain and I get headaches, and it just becomes a really, really miserable working experience. That's one reason I always loved working on the 27-inch iMac, and this display is no different. I'm older now, and I've actually been having trouble with with my right eye. I had to go to the ophthalmologist because my right eye was doing some crazy things. So eye strain is a big deal for me, and I've always had sort of challenging eyesight. So I need that really good, crisp scaling. Some people have been talking about the height of the monitor. It's not adjustable unless you pay $400 for the adjustable thing. To me, okay, so I've worked in offices for a lot of my career, and one thing that you get to do eventually when you work in offices is you go through ergonomics training. And one thing that the ergonomics training people have always said to me is that you want your monitor, like the top of the monitor, you want to be sort of at eye level, maybe slightly above, but at eye level. So you're always looking sort of straight down at the monitor, especially for somebody like me. I have transition lenses so that I'm nearsighted, so when I want to read something close up. Anyway, old people stuff, but it matters. You want your monitor to be at eye level and down. Another thing that people aren't quite talking about with this monitor is the PPI. Flossie Carter will appreciate as I call out the PPI police on not necessarily understanding the difference between this studio display and other typical monitors. This studio display has 218 pixels per inch, whereas the typical monitor, and this is the best PPI that I could find, the typical 4K monitor, I found that a new 28-inch Samsung monitor was 158 pixels per inch. More pixels means better resolution, and this one has it. So when we're talking about ProMotion display and mini LEDs and all that kind of stuff, it's not always just the buzzwords that we've been talking about for the longest time, even though it's Apple that's partially trained us to talk about them. It's a lot to do with things that have always been on the table as features that need to be as good as they possibly can be for the monitor to really do what it needs to do. And I think another thing that people aren't quite understanding or thinking about, or it's a new thing, so maybe that's why, this monitor has an A13 chip inside. Now that allows the webcam to do some things, and it allows for spatial audio with the speakers. I don't care about the webcam. I don't care about the speakers. I don't care if they do spatial audio. I will never use them. I will likely never use the webcam because I'm a professional, and why would I use a webcam for anything that matters, right? Maybe for, a meeting of some kind or something, but I've got a camera right here. The screen is right here. Why would I? Most professionals are not going to use these speakers for professional work. Most professionals are not going to use this webcam for professional use. So it's nice that they're there. The A13 helps power them, but it's there, to me, not really a feature. What the A13 brings to the table is the possibility for future upgrades. There's a lot of upgradability. The A13 chip, even though it's a few years old, is really very powerful. This monitor on like day 2 or 3 that I was using it has already received a firmware update. I think that there's a lot of potential for this monitor to get better as time goes on. When you're buying a monitor like this, $15.99 base price, it's nice to know that it can be upgradable. It can be more than it is on the day that you buy it. Let's talk about the bad, or at least some of the perceived bad things. I'll talk about what I perceive as, sort of negatives or bad things, and then also some of what other folks seem to perceive as bad things that to me just really aren't. And the first one of those is the bezels. People, like, what is the obsession with bezels? Like, why are we fetishizing bezels so much? Now, if this had a 1-inch bezel like the iMacs, then yeah, I would be a little bit perplexed by the 1-inch bezel. But this has, like, I don't know, just eyeballing it, looks like a 1/2 inch bezel. And to me, this looks like a design choice, not a thing that they had to do just because the technology wasn't there. It frames the screen very nicely. You can see the nice delineation between the screen and the edge of the monitor, and so it works very well for me. So the bezels are not that big a deal. One thing that is kind of a big deal to me, one thing that I wanted to see from a new Apple monitor in this more sort of affordable, that's a relative term, affordable space, is 32 instead of 27 inches. 27 inches is fine. 27 inches is about as big as anybody really needs, but I've gotten used to larger monitors. I like to have that little bit more space to use, and 32 inches would have been a nice upgrade from the 27. But if we've got a 27-inch monitor that looks as good as this one, I'm not really gonna, kick it out of bed for eating crackers or anything like that. It's really a great looking monitor, and so I'm not going to complain. The placement of the monitor, and the versatility of the ways that you can place the monitor are somewhat of a detraction. But again, this is as much a design piece as it is a functional piece of technology. So I'm sort of on the fence as to whether or not this is a negative. It has the stand. At least we don't have to pay for it separately. You have the option for a VESA mount. You have the option to pay for the raise and lower arm of it. If you buy this monitor without the height adjustability and you decide that's something you want, you can take this monitor back to the Apple Store and they can install that for you. If you want a VESA mount instead of the stand, you can go and they'll install that for you. But usually, if you have a monitor, you can usually take the stand off and you can put it on a VESA mount and get more desk space back, etc., etc. Can't do that with this. As I said, it's a design piece, a showcase piece, as much as a really good piece of technology. So you kind of have to take that as it comes. The one real issue that I have with it right now is it moves around on the desk really easily. Same problem I have with the Mac Studio. Something about the stuff that they have on the bottom that I suppose is supposed to be grippy and keeping it in place is not keeping it in place, and that is annoying. So I don't know exactly why they're doing that with these things. I'm gonna have to I don't like for it. It just slides around. I don't like it. I want it to stay where I put it. So I'll have to figure out some solution for that. Things that I'm indifferent about with this monitor, as I said, webcam, 6 speakers, microphones. I don't care about any of that stuff. It's nice that they're there. I'm not paying for this monitor for those things. I would have traded those things for other features. Like I said, maybe an extra couple of inches or something like that. If these monitors are truly meant to be used in a studio/professional environment, only a small fraction of a percent of the users of these monitors are actually going to take advantage of those speakers or those microphones, other than in really not mission critical ways. So I would have preferred to see something different in a feature set other than those things. Who knows? Maybe I'll find that they're very useful someday, but at this point, I don't really care. Haven't tested them. Don't give a crap. Last thing that people talk about a lot with this monitor is the price. And yes, the price is too damn high. It's very, very high. $1,600 for a monitor is a lot of money. Did I want to spend the money? If I had my druthers, no. But do I love what Apple monitors bring to the Apple experience? Yes. Is this the only monitor that I can get that's not $5,000 that'll bring it to me? Yes, unless I want to buy a used Thunderbolt display or something like that, and then those are still really great monitors, even though they haven't been made since I think 2016. So if you can find one used, the Thunderbolt display might be a solution for you. But brand new off the shelf, the first time Apple's offering a prosumer monitor, this thing is really, really good. And I have been able to get more work done because I've had less eye strain, because it just does the stuff that it needs to do. And so in my first week of using it, I have very much appreciated it. And I think that we need to appreciate what this monitor does and what it brings to the table a little bit more than complain about the stuff that it doesn't have, that actually, honestly, in my opinion, wouldn't improve the experience all that much in the first place. And you're not going to game on this monitor, so who cares about 120 hertz? You're not going to edit 120 hertz video on this monitor. It's a work monitor. ProMotion, not as necessary. I mean, the only time you're going to see things moving around is your mouse, and it's smooth. It's fine. As opposed, and mini LED is a technology that would improve the monitor, maybe, but I am not really sold on the fact that it would. Having had a mini LED TV, mini LED on the MacBook, mini LED on the iPad, I'm going to say that while it can look really good, it's not an experience-changing thing. This is a high-end monitor for people who do prosumer work, whether for money or for themselves, but they work at a high level and they want good tools to do it. That's what the Apple Studio Display is. A very high quality piece of gear for people who are working at a very high level, trying to create very high quality output. You let me know what you think down in the comments below. I really do appreciate you being here. We'll have boisterous discussion all the way through. Once again, my name is Jason T. Lewis. This has been my discussion of the Studio Display from Apple. Thank you so very much. And until the next time, I'm out.